Lately, I've been kind of feeling like that scene from Alice in Wonderland where Alice is like falling down the rabbit hole, except there's not necessarily a particular rabbit hole I'm falling down. I'm just falling. And it feels like I'm falling in slow motion. And almost like everything that I've ever experienced is what I'm falling through. Listen, I don't I don't expect anyone to resonate with that analogy because I just pulled that out of my ass, but like that's just how I'm feeling, okay? And I'm always very transparent with you all about how I believe that transparency, vulnerability, all that kind of stuff is my main focus behind what I'm creating. And it is the driving force of my entire life. I would say that in subtle ways my entire life, but obviously everyone is a teenager at some point. So like your teenage years get kind of murky when it comes to authenticity, but I really do make authenticity the kind of driving force and goal behind everything I do. I'm always looking to be more authentic, to show up more authentically, more honestly. But what I've come to realize is that by being so hyper focused about what the most honest thing is, what the most authentic thing I can be doing is, it taints the past for me in a lot of ways. It taints the old versions of me that were being their most authentic because now I'm so focused with the next authentic version of me. And obviously that speaks to a lot of things. It speaks to presence. It speaks to compassion for your younger self and not worrying about your older self, all those kind of things. And I'm not really here to talk about all that stuff today. And I think that's a part of me that I subconsciously kind of shame in a way because I'll even look at old episodes of mine and it could be my most recent podcast episode. And since I am so used to this forward motion of always having the ball rolling, always going to the next thing, even if that means I'm taking ideas from old ideas that I've had and I'm using them to create new ideas, it's really hard for me to kind of take pride in the old things that I've created because I know that I'm different now and I'm showing up differently now every single time I'm creating something. So I was in this state for a while where I was so concerned with just giving my past self, my younger self, compassion for all the things that she went through that she didn't necessarily deserve, all that kind of stuff. And I think through life, that's necessary for all of us to do, right? Like it's part of our quote unquote healing, whatever you want to call it. And for a while, though, I think it was just kind of like the lingering part of the healing journey for me where I was like, okay, like I think I've healed from these things. Now I'm just giving myself compassion as like the part of me that almost not feels bad for that part of me, but I was like almost using that chunk of time where I was just like feeling this utmost compassion for myself as like oh, I need to feel this right now so that I can cut cords with that. And so that I can move on from it and be everything that I am now without my past self holding me back. But me thinking about my past self holding me back was still me inherently holding shame for her in a way. I think I'm in a place now where I know to my core that I am the happiest. I'm in the most peaceful state I've ever been in. I'm creating more than I've ever created. Like, I know I'm in the best place I've ever been in, even if I have days that still feel like, oh, there's that lingering feeling. It's like I still know that feeling now just makes me feel like I'm human rather than like I'm failing, I'm doing everything wrong, I'm falling off the wagon. But when I moved out of my childhood home, I moved 7 hours away to go to college and to start a whole new life for myself. That was genuinely starting an entire new life for myself. It wasn't just a new chapter for me. Like I had to pick myself up from the depths of the earth and build myself up from scratch because I didn't even know the ways that I did know myself at the time, if they really were me or if they were just a conditioned part of my past or whatever. And I think that anyone who moves out of their parents' house, let alone if it's for college or whatever it is, I think we all kind of go through that in a way. And it's the most polarizing feeling because on one end it feels so liberating and freeing, and on the other end it feels like you're doing everything wrong, and every step that you take you are so unsure of that step because you have absolutely no evidence that it's taking you anywhere, period. And I'm at a place where I feel good and I've completely settled into where I am in my life now. I'm still in college. I'm about to be a senior and feeling all the feelings. And that's probably why I'm here right now talking about all these things, because I'm just at this state right now where I've not only now started a whole new life for myself, but I've built it brick by brick myself. Like all of the things that I am right now are because of me. And that sounds kind of shallow when you say it. It does. Obviously, like everything I do is rooted in, my connection to a higher power and all those things as well. But I'm not here to talk about that kind of stuff right now because I believe in it so much that I believe in it to the point of everything that I'm talking about has to do with it, and is fueled by it. Whatever you want to call it, whatever that is for you. But now that I'm living the life that I've always dreamed of and might have not even known is possible for me, I think I've just gotten to this point where I'm so comfortable in it. And I'm someone who is always looking to grow, okay? Like I really chase anything that builds that neuroplasticity in my brain, okay? Like I will chase any fucking thing that pushes me a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I do. And also, I'm still human, obviously. So we all tend to stay in our comfort zones in subtle ways, even ways that we're not even aware of. And I think it's come clear to me lately that since I'm in this place where I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, I do love myself more than I ever have. And that's something that I used to struggle with so deeply. And I have really great connections and friendships and people in my life that I can go to and talk about real deep things about and all the things that really mattered to me, like all that kind of stuff. It's like I do have that in my life. And I think I've gotten to a point where since I have those things and I'm at a point where I'm the best that I've ever been, I'm comfortable with just being here. And I feel like I think I'm kind of coming out of it now, but this past year or so, I feel like I got really comfortable with just living in it. And I don't think that is inherently wrong. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today in a very loose way, because we're going to kind of talk about a million other things like we always do on this podcast. Okay. Like I am never going to be someone who's going to hop on the mic and give you the most well-rounded, most kind of script by script example of something that's on my mind. Like it's when I'm talking on this mic, it is completely encapsulating the way that my brain works because I'm talking to you for 30 minutes to an hour straight. So it's straight thoughts. Okay. It's straight thoughts. But yeah, I guess the reason why I was saying like lately, I feel like I'm kind of grieving it is because I'm about to be a senior, which means I'm not going to be living in the place that I've started my life, it feels, for me. And so I'm kind of grieving that, but also like trying to leave room for a lot of fun because it's going to be my senior year and like, it's the last hoopla. So bring back the word hoopla. Haven't said that in a while. Yeah, it's like kind of that impending feeling of like, oh, everything's about to change. Oh, I did get so comfortable with everything here. And I know that a year from now, my life is going to look completely different. And it's not even in a way where I'm trying to hold on almost. Like in a way I am because I do love my life now. But it's more of like, I know that things are going to be better. Even better than I could ever expect. Like I know I'm moving on to bigger and better things. And like the point of life is not to be a 20 something in college for the rest of your life. But it's that feeling of like being uprooted. It feels like my roots are now where I am living in my college town. Because this is where I truly feel like I was expressing myself fully for the first time, finding what that actually even means to me. And, everything I have here feels like a testament almost and like a celebration of me being fully myself. Like all the friends that I've met are because I've been fully myself. All the opportunities that have come to me are because I've been myself. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it feels very earth shattering when all that kind of comes crashing down all at once. And you now just have to take those parts of you into a completely different chapter and environment. So yeah, it's just a little frightening. It's a little frightening, but it's also something that I'm constantly toying with the idea of like, oh, I shouldn't be worrying about this right now. I still have a whole year left of college. Why am I worrying about all this stuff right now? And then there's another part of me that's like, no, it's actually just you being realistic to worry about these things. It's you being human to worry about these things. It's you understanding where you are in time right now. you know? And that's something that's always a struggle for me is like time. Like, not only am I someone who it has like time blindness, and like if I don't write something down on my planner, it's not happening. It's not real in my head. Like I will completely forget about it, you know? Like time is a very weird concept for me because I ultimately don't really believe in it that much either. Like it is just truly a concept. I'm not trying to get that deep today. I'm really not. But yeah, time is an interesting one because it almost feels like when I'm abiding by time, I'm going against my morals because I'm such a free spirited person that believes that I do my best work. I show up my most authentically. I care for others the most. I give others the most compassion when I am being present, which means I'm not worrying about time, you know? So that kind of brings me to this topic of being careless versus being intentional, and how like being organic and having this kind of mindset where you just want things to find you organically kind of shows up in our lives and in our creative processes. So, one of the ways that I feel like this is really prevalent to me is in my dating life or lack thereof. Because I'm someone who, like I said, just really wants things to happen organically in my life. And it's not that I just want things to happen organically. It's like I genuinely believe that like that is the only way. In my head, there's no reason to force anything because if it's meant to be, it'll come into my life or something will happen that will push me towards it. Like I'm such a deep believer in everything happens for a reason and you're right where you're meant to be and all those things. But I also do believe in the saying that God only helps those who help themselves. I truly do believe in that as well. Like you can't just expect things to be handed to you if you're not actively working towards them. But if you are actively working towards them, that's you showing your care, your passion, your drive behind it, you know, which is where the fruits of your labor are going to come in. So, going back to dating, this is just an example. I'm not going to get super into my dating life right now because genuinely, guys, like I could not talk about it for longer than a minute, genuinely. But yeah, like I'm someone who is always single. I'm always fucking single. And it seems like everyone around me is always finding someone because I'm such a believer in things just coming to me organically. And it's hard because it's like my way of working towards being in a relationship and finding the one that's for me is me working on myself. That's me working on myself because I believe that your standards are never too high if you embody everything that you require from someone else or that you desire from someone else loving you. You know, like if I am already doing all those things myself, then that's proof that other people hold those same qualities and are able to give that to me as well. So I just work on myself, point blank, period. Like I just work on being the best person I can be, being the most authentic I can be, working on my crafts, working on my relationships, all that kind of stuff. And that's not me putting myself on a pedestal at all. I'm just talking, okay? I'm just talking. And you know, I think of this sometimes with art and how it applies to our creative processes because I think sometimes I'll be so concerned with the fact that I'm going to find my audience in this authentic kind of natural, organic way. And what I've noticed is that it's really easy to let the idea of things happening organically kind of slip through the cracks and turn into pressure. Like you're putting pressure behind things coming into your life organically, you know? And I guess the only way that I have found feasible to kind of mitigate that feeling of putting pressure on things is by just genuinely working towards it. And that's going to look differently for everyone, obviously, because in order to do that, you have to do it authentically, and everyone's authentic self is different. So it's a weird, like, I feel like everything I'm talking about right now is so dichotomous, like, in its nature. There's always as above, so below, like, to everything in life, okay? But I feel like when I get so trapped up in this mindset of, like, if this is true, then this also is true, it puts me in this spiral, okay? It puts me in this crazy spiral of like, okay, so nothing's real. So everything's an illusion. Like nothing even fucking matters, you know? And it makes me feel like I'm kind of losing the plot while simultaneously realizing that I'm finding it. I hope I'm not just speaking in tongues in a crazy way today, but sometimes that's just what I do here, okay? And if it's going to resonate with you, then I found my people. But that kind of goes back to what I was saying about finding my audience. In order to find the people that are going to resonate with the things that I'm saying, what I've had to realize recently is that it's actually not about what I'm saying. It's about the fact that I'm choosing to say it. It's not about what I'm saying. Okay. Because words hold power. Okay. I'm not trying to say that what I'm saying doesn't hold power at all, or what you have to put into the world, what you're saying holds no power. Words hold fucking power. Okay. They do. And honestly, sometimes more than anything does. But you can also argue that words are just words, okay? And action is more powerful than words are, right? So when you're saying something, the words that you're saying are just words, because someone can take what you're saying and it can apply to them in a completely different way than the person sitting next to them that heard you say the same exact thing. You know what I mean? Like, and that is true with any single art form ever. That's true with paintings. That's true with singing, acting, anything, literally anything. People are going to perceive things based on where they are, not where you are. So you can try all you want to curate something so that someone perceives it and receives it in the way that you want them to, but that's literally not worth any of your energy, because they're going to perceive it how they want to perceive it anyways. So I just think that we're living in this world right now where cancel culture is very apparent. Like, we are all so aware of cancel culture. And I talked about this a little more in depth in my last episode when you're listening to this, because we talked about social media a lot. And I think because we're all so aware of cancel culture and the fact that things are so permanent when it comes to the internet, like, people can dig up things from when you were 7 years old and use it against you. And that's really fucking scary, because no one truly resonates with who they were when they were 7 years old. Like, I would hope that we're all different people now, you know? Like, maybe we want to resonate with like the free spiritness that we had when we were seven, but like, we should not be standing behind everything we said when we were 7 years old. And it's kind of insane that we can use those versions of ourselves against people. But anyways, since cancel culture is so prevalent in today's society, I think it has taught us all to over explain ourselves. So we're at this point now where everyone feels like they have to sort of not only censor themselves in certain ways so that they can avoid over explaining themselves. And we're kind of seeing that with the ways in which people post on social media. It's like they're kind of just playing it safe and doing what everyone else is doing so that they don't have to over explain themselves. But also, we feel the need to almost preface things before we even do them. So I find myself doing that all the time when I'm podcasting. And every time I bring up a higher power, I feel the need to tell you guys that means whatever it means to you. Like, I'm not trying to push any persona. I'm not trying to push any ideologies on you. Like, you know, I'm not the type of person that's ever going to tell you you need to think exactly how I think. And I'm sitting on this mic so that you can believe what I believe. Like, I'm not even sitting here as a person that thinks that the purpose behind what I'm doing right now is for people to resonate with it. I don't think everyone's going to resonate with what I'm saying. And I don't think that my purpose is to be a relatable person. I think my purpose is just to be who I am, you know? And whoever relates with what I'm saying is honestly not up to me at all. Like, there's no use of me trying to uphold this one persona to make myself relatable to other people, because relatability is so subjective. Like, there's no one person for everyone, you know? And I've been talking a lot about authenticity, just kind of weaving that concept through this episode. And it's funny because when I first started my podcast, like, I don't know, 3 years ago now, authenticity was one of the first things I talked about on this platform. And it's obviously important to me because y'all hear me talk about it in almost every episode. And I think it applies to every single aspect of life. But I was talking before about how it sometimes creates pressure when you're always trying to let things happen naturally. And I think that also applies with trying to be your most authentic self, and how that kind of invites a lot of room for pressure to come into the conversation, because you being your most authentic self kind of implies that all the other versions of you weren't authentic. You know, it's like when people talk about awakening to themselves or having this like soul awakening, it implies that you were asleep the entire time. And it's like, that's not always true because maybe what you needed in that time of your life was just to experience, was not necessarily to look at things head on and dissect everything piece by piece, but rather to just like sit beside it, hold its hand, and live your life as you are. You know what I mean? Like life ebbs and flows, and we go through phases in life where sometimes we're being really intuitive and we're just going with the flow. We're seeing what happens. We're just being present. Then you have times in your life where you're in really introspective periods where you're kind of thinking about every single thing you've ever done and how it's affected you and made you the person that you are today. But that doesn't mean that we're meant to be in that phase of our life always. And I know firsthand that being in that phase of your life for too long sometimes makes you fucking spiral. And it makes you kind of go back on everything you've ever believed about yourself and dig it all up and start again. And sometimes that's the point, but sometimes it's not. Like sometimes it's actually not necessary, and it's just our egos coming in telling us that that's what we need to do because it's what we've always done in the past. Tailing off of the whole organic conversation, another thing that I've been thinking about lately is how sometimes the most organic thing to you from the outside world, it can look like the most unnatural thing. Like the example that hits my mind first is me sitting down right now with a mic in my hand. This to me is like the most natural thing I could do. Like I'm so used to doing this. This is my passion. It's my purpose. I think about things related to the podcast every single fucking day of my life, which is why I'm going insane. Okay. Because art makes you go fucking crazy. Okay. And I don't know if I'm going to make this the title of this episode, so I want to say it in case I don't. But being creative and following your creativity makes you wild, not crazy. Okay, it does not make you crazy because if you're following your creativity, you get to a point where you understand that the only way that it works is when you are untethered, when you're unbound. You know, you are not tied to anything other than honesty, authenticity, all that stuff. But the thing that makes it hard is that your authentic self is always changing. So it's like, okay, if I'm untethered to everything except for my authentic self, then what the fuck even is my foundation? Because I'm always changing. So the ground underneath me is always moving, you know, and it makes it really hard to understand the direction that you're going in. But like maybe that's the point. Like we are not necessarily supposed to know the direction that we're going in because how could we know? So I think that's why sometimes I default to thinking about the past more, is because, well, that's all I know. Like that's literally all I know. So the only thing that actually represents like my growth and shows that to me is looking at my old self and seeing how I'm different now, which is not inherently a bad thing because that like shows you how much you've grown, but like it's very hard for me to see how I've grown specifically even in the categories of which I'm pouring myself into because I'm so committed to the process of just being. And, you know, so when I'm looking at old versions of myself, it's me just trying to give myself compassion. It's not me like comparing myself to that version, if that makes sense. I feel like identity comes into play in this conversation that we're having today. Identity is the thing that we're using as our anchor when we are people who are creating from an untethered place. Because, like I said, if you're always changing and that's the only thing you're falling back on is your authentic self, then you feel kind of like you're almost leaving yourself in the dark sometimes. And you are just like looking around with the dimmest little flashlight ever in a dark room, trying to figure out what the fuck you're doing and what is next and who you are and all those things. And identity really plays a role in that because we attach to our identities then, and that becomes part of our why. And it can be very scary because that can slip through the cracks a lot, and it can become almost detrimental to our creative processes because then we're clinging to our sense of identity that we have created without even realizing it, and we're clinging onto that with dear life. But your identity is always changing because your most authentic self is always changing, you know, so you don't really have an identity. And then you start to spiral thinking about the fact that you have no identity because it's like, holy fuck, how can I even be my most authentic self if I don't even know what the fuck that is, you know? Anywho, but what I've realized is that the way that I cultivate my sense of identity, because I don't want to demonize it as like, oh, you shouldn't have any identity at all. Like, no, we all need some sort of identity to keep us sort of together in a way and to keep our heads above water. And what I've realized about myself is that I cultivate my identity by making things my own. And part of that for me is creating, like everything I create is sort of like a stamp in time to me. But another thing for me is like tattoos, like seeing something out in the world and it resonating so deeply with me to the point where I choose to put it on my body permanently for the rest of my life. It's like the permanency of it all that creates the identity, and that's why I think that the topic of social media is really important and really polarizing too in ways. Because, on one hand, it's like, just create, just fucking put things out there. It's not that deep. Just do what makes you happy. Just post the things that make you happy, that make sense to you. And then on the other side, it's like, but that is creating a sense of identity because people are perceiving you like that is the persona that you're putting out there. Even if it's just in the digital world, it's still a reflection of you at the end of the day. It's hard to feel such opposing feelings at all times. It's very hard, but that's also just what being human is. And sometimes it's as simple as just reminding yourself that, like, when you're feeling pulled in two different directions, that's the most human feeling that you could feel, We've reached this point of the episode where we've come to the weird wrap up. Okay. This is where I kind of just talk about anything that I want to talk about. Sometimes it relates to the episode. Sometimes I just talk about my favorite color at the moment. I'm also toying with the name of weirding out right now instead of the weird wrap up, but I feel like what I'm weirding out on is the catalyst of the segment of the weird wrap up, if that makes sense. Like, we're in the weird wrap up right now and I'm weirding out about imperfection today. Okay. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I feel like I go through these periods of my life where I just don't really care as much about how I'm showing up in the world. And I actually care way more about just showing up messy. And, this summer, I feel like I've just been thrown into this feeling of like, oh, I'm just actually never going to put makeup on ever. And I'm not even going to brush my hair. And I'm just going to like go out in the world and be free. And some people will take that as like, oh, you just like don't care about yourself. Like, you're just not taking care of yourself. But to me, it feels so freeing. But see, that also brings up the feeling of like, if I'm living my life now from this place of like, oh, I can show up messy, whatever, then the times that I am intentionally like putting energy into showing up a certain way, it's like, oh, am I being fake? Am I being performative? And it's like, no, two things can be true at once, okay? Like, me experimenting with my style, experimenting with whatever is not the same thing as me trying to show up a certain way. I'm just embodying what I want to embody by following my intuition and following what makes sense to me right now, Anywho, that's where the conversation of social media gets so wishy-washy, because it's like, some people will argue that you can post on social media for yourself. And I've always kind of argued that there's no such thing as posting on social media solely for yourself, because if it was for you, it would stay in your camera roll. And I feel opposing feelings about that on a daily basis, but for the most part, I stand true to that. And it's hard though, because it's like, even if, I'm looking at my bed right now and it's unmade and, my room's a little messy, whatever. If I were to snap a picture of my unmade bed right now and post it on Instagram, it's like, okay, but just the fact that I snapped a picture and posted it makes it almost feel like curated to me. Like, there's something about just the inherent act of posting on social media that feels so performative now. And it's something that I will probably forever have thoughts about. So stay tuned for more episodes. But yeah, I don't have a ton to wrap up on today. I just wanted to kind of talk about imperfection because I feel like it had a lot to do with the themes that came up today, with authenticity and organic-cacy and originality and all those things. I'm just making up words now, but stop being so afraid to show up as you are, because you know that there's a future version of yourself that's showing up differently. Like, you have to show up as you are right now in order to be that person eventually. And you are that person right now. Like, if you are worth something later, you're worth something now. Okay? So just be where your feet are. And of course, I'm just like ending this with the most lame, cringy sayings, but these be my mantras, okay? Like, I be telling myself these things every day. So, yeah, sometimes the cringy things are cringy because they're true. So, that was so cringy. Anyways, have the courage to cringe at yourself today, okay? Because it's kind of freeing. It's kind of freeing. It's kind of like the most freeing thing that you can do. So, take that as you will. I'm sending all the love your way, and I can't wait to talk to you guys more. I feel like I'm stepping into a new era with this podcast. So stay tuned. And if you're not already listening on YouTube, what the heck are you doing? Go listen on YouTube. Okay, go listen on YouTube. I actually don't care where you listen from. I'm just grateful that you're here. Feel free to reach out to me with anything, any thoughts, any concerns, any questions whatsoever. I love to continue the conversations that we have on here. And yeah, all my socials will be linked down below. Love you and goodbye. Kisses.